Aegean Sea, 1901. 50 meters below the surface, off the coast of a tiny Greek island called Antikythera, a team of Greek sponge divers was salvaging an ancient shipwreck. They came for bronze statues, ceramic vessels, maybe gold. They had no idea they were about to pull up something that would rewrite the entire history of human civilization. Buried under decades of coral and seawater sat a corroded lump of bronze, broken, encrusted, weighing roughly 21 kilograms. It looked like garbage. It nearly got thrown back into the sea. But locked inside that corroded lump was a system of interlocking bronze gears so precise and so complex that no known civilization on Earth would produce anything remotely close to it for the next 1,400 years. Scientists call it the Antikythera Mechanism. Western media calls it the world's first computer. And for over 120 years, not a single person on the planet could fully explain how it actually worked. Until now. Before we go any further, drop a number 1 in the comments right now. Here is what I want to know. Do you believe the ancient Greeks built this entirely on their own? Or do you think something else is going on here? Comment 1 solo if you believe in the raw genius of ancient humans. Comment 1 something else if you think this story runs a lot deeper than the textbooks are telling us. I read every single comment and I will be responding directly down below. Now, let's get into it. Here is what makes this story genuinely extraordinary. The object was discovered in 1901, over 120 years ago. And for most of that time, the world's best scientists, engineers, and historians could not agree on what it actually did. That is not an exaggeration. The Antikythera Mechanism sat in a museum display case in Athens for decades, largely ignored. Largely misunderstood. It was not until 1951 that a British science historian named Derek de Sola Price looked at it seriously. What he found stopped him cold. This was not a decorative object, not a trophy, not a religious artifact. It was a functioning machine with a purpose. Price spent over 20 years studying it. In 1974, he published a landmark paper titled Gears from the Greeks. His conclusion was radical for its time. This device, built somewhere around 150 to 100 BCE, contained a minimum of 37 interlocking bronze gears. It could calculate and display the positions of the sun and the moon. It could predict solar and lunar eclipses years in advance. It tracked the 4-year cycle of the ancient Olympic Games. And it may have modeled the movement of all 5 planets visible to the naked eye. Let that sink in for a moment. 2,100 years ago, someone built a handheld mechanical model of the known universe, and then it vanished. Let that sink in for a moment. The technology disappeared so completely that nothing comparable was built again until the 14th century CE in Europe. That is a gap of 1,400 years. In the history of science, there is no gap like it. Nowhere. Nothing comes close. So the real question was never, what is this thing? The real question was always, how did they build it and why did the knowledge die with them? Before we get to the real answers, we need to talk about what this device is not. Theory number 1. Aliens built it. This deserves exactly 0 serious consideration. It assumes ancient Greeks were incapable of sophisticated thought. They gave us Euclidean geometry. Theory number 2. It was a decorative instrument. This was demolished when researchers ran CT scans. They found 37 gears inside, meshed together with sub-millimeter precision. Theory number 3. A single genius built it. But the evidence tells a different story. Manufacturing tolerances are consistent. This requires a workshop, a school of craftsmen. Something most YouTube videos get wrong. They describe it as a primitive device. That framing is backwards. The Antikythera Mechanism was not a rough draft. It was the finished product of a tradition we have almost entirely lost. Let us start with what we can see and touch. The original device is currently housed at the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, Greece. It exists as 82 separate fragments. The largest fragment fits in the palm of your hand. When researchers began mapping the surface under magnification, they found something remarkable. more than 2,000 Greek characters etched into the bronze. Not decorative script, an instruction manual. The Antikythera Mechanism came with its own user guide, written directly onto its surface. When fully assembled, the device measured 34 centimeters tall. The front face showed the positions of the sun and moon. The back face contained two large spiral dials, tracking the metonic and saros cycles to predict eclipses. In 2005, an international team used three-dimensional CT scanning technology for the first time on the fragments. For the first time in 2,000 years, scientists could see inside the device. They found more than 40 gears, text that had not been seen since the device was lost at sea in approximately 60 BCE. This is the section most channels skip over because it requires actual science. We are going to do the work. At the heart of the Antikythera Mechanism is a concept called a differential gear train. Here is what that means in plain language. A differential gear allows two separate inputs to be combined into a single output. You use differential gears every time you drive a car around a corner. Your two rear wheels need to spin at different speeds through a turn. The differential gear in your axle makes that possible. For over 400 years, historians of technology believed the differential gear was a European invention from the 16th century CE. The Antikythera Mechanism pushed that date back by over 1,600 years. Now, why did the Greeks need a differential gear inside an astronomical device? Because the moon does not move at a constant speed. The moon accelerates and decelerates as it travels its elliptical path around the Earth. To accurately model that irregular motion, you need two inputs feeding into a single calculation. Exactly what a differential gear provides. The Greek engineer who designed this understood the moon's variable speed well enough to build a mechanical solution for it. That is not intuition. That is advanced mathematics translated into metal. In 2021, a research team at University College London, led by Professor Tony Freeth, published a study in the journal Scientific Reports. Their goal was to reconstruct the full front plate of the mechanism, including the planetary display system. Previous reconstructions had left the front plate incomplete because no one could figure out how 5 planets were being tracked simultaneously in such a compact space. The UCL team solved it, using only mathematical tools available to ancient Greek scientists, primarily the work of the astronomer Hipparchus. They built a model showing how all 5 planets known to the Greeks, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, could be tracked using a system of nested concentric rings driven by a single hand crank. The solution was elegant, compact, brilliant, and it matched the physical evidence from the surviving fragments. Here is my own analysis of what that finding actually means. We have been calling this device a computer because it computes. But that framing misses the deeper point. The Greeks were not trying to automate calculation. They were trying to hold the cosmos in their hands. This was philosophy, expressed as engineering. The question driving its creation was not, how do we make math faster? The question was, how do we prove that the universe follows predictable laws? The Antikythera Mechanism was their proof. A physical argument that the heavens move according to reason, not the will of gods. That is a far more radical idea than a calculator. If ancient texts and mechanical analysis were not enough, modern science has now added a third layer of confirmation, and it removes almost all remaining doubt. In 2008, the Antikythera Mechanism Research Project released its comprehensive analysis. Using a technique called polynomial texture mapping, researchers applied shifting light sources at precise angles across the surface of the fragments. This revealed text and surface details invisible to the naked eye and impossible to read by conventional photography. The results confirmed the device was manufactured around 87 BCE. The inscriptions identified specific astronomical events and cycles consistent with observations made from the Eastern Mediterranean, most likely the island of Rhodes. In 2022, an independent research group from the University of Glasgow analyzed the metal composition of the bronze alloy. The specific mixture of copper, tin, and lead traced back to ore sources in the Corinth region of Greece. That is a physical fingerprint pointing directly to a specific geographic origin. But the most staggering data point is this. When engineers used modern precision instruments to measure the gear teeth inside the surviving fragments, the manufacturing deviation across individual gear teeth measured approximately 0.02 millimeters. 0.02 of a millimeter. That is a tolerance level consistent with 20th century industrial machining standards. Not hand tools, not ancient workshops, 20th century standards, achieved 2,100 years ago. This is the part that forces a difficult question. If one craftsman could not produce this level of consistency alone, and we know they could not, then there had to be a system behind it. A school, a tradition, a body of technical knowledge passed between generations. And that entire system was erased so completely that we spent 1,400 years rebuilding it from scratch. That is not a mystery about a machine. That is a mystery about what happens to human knowledge when civilizations collapse. So let us bring all of this together. Who built it? The physical evidence, the material composition, the astronomical parameters encoded in its dials, and the geographic references in its inscriptions all point to one location. The island of Rhodes, approximately 100 BCE. Rhodes was not just a Greek island, it was the Silicon Valley of the ancient Mediterranean world. It housed one of the most advanced schools of astronomy and mathematics in the known world. The astronomer Hipparchus, widely considered the father of trigonometry, worked there. The Stoic philosopher Posidonius, who built a primitive mechanical model of the solar system, described by the Roman writer Cicero, was based there. Speaking of Cicero, here is a detail most people do not know. In approximately 60 BCE, the Roman statesman Cicero wrote in his own records that he had personally seen two devices capable of modeling the motion of the sun, the moon, and the planets. Two devices, not one. The Antikythera Mechanism was not a unique prototype. It was a product, a manufactured object that existed in more than one copy, which means there was a production tradition behind it. Why did it vanish? Not because the knowledge was lost in a single catastrophic moment, but because the Roman Empire had no institutional interest in preserving it. Rome needed roads, aqueducts, military logistics, and tax records. Predicting the position of Jupiter 2 years from now served none of those goals. When the funding dried up and the patronage disappeared, the workshops closed, the craftsmen moved on, and the knowledge dissolved into silence over the course of a few generations. The real mystery was never the machine itself. The real mystery is how fragile human knowledge actually is, and how easily 2,000 years of progress can slip through our fingers. We have spent over a century calling this the world's first computer. And that label, while technically accurate, actually shrinks the story, because when we call it a computer, we are looking at ancient Greece through the lens of Silicon Valley. We are measuring their achievement by our standards. Here is a different way to see it. The Greeks did not build this because they needed faster calculations. They built it because they believed the universe was rational. They believed that the motion of every planet, every eclipse, every celestial cycle followed laws that human reason could discover and replicate. That belief, encoded in bronze gears no larger than a coin, is the foundation of every scientific institution that exists today. They were not ahead of their time. They were exactly of their time, and their time was extraordinary. At the beginning of this video, I asked you a question. Do you believe the ancient Greeks built this entirely on their own? Go back down to your comment and tell me if anything you just learned changed your answer. I genuinely want to know. If this video gave you something real, something that made you think differently about history or science or human potential, share it with one person who would appreciate it. That is how this kind of knowledge spreads. Subscribe if you want more videos like this one. Every video on this channel is built from primary sources, peer-reviewed research, and original analysis. No speculation dressed up as fact. No myths presented as mystery, just the actual story told as clearly as possible. The next video covers another piece of ancient technology so advanced that mainstream archaeology still does not have a fully accepted explanation for how it was built. You will not want to miss it. I will see you there.